Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I call it John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
What up, world? It's Jimmy Toscano and the real Bobby Manning. What's going on, Bobby?
What's up? Happy New Year, Jimmy.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Glad to see you survived it from New York. I survived it here in Boston. The Celtics did not survive Oklahoma City tonight, falling to the Thunder. I would say, title contending Thunder, 127-123, behind a hell of a performance from SGA himself. We'll get into the Thunder, I'm sure. Just their quick turnaround to the team that they are today, but obviously with Giddey and Chet Holmgren hitting some shots, big shots tonight. The Thunder were too much for the Celtics team that just didn't quite bring it on the defensive side of things. Certainly not for 4 quarters. And then it was the classic tale, Bobby, of teams of the past. Too little, too late. They clamp down on one end. They start to score in bunches on the other. I think they went on. I saw the graphic on TV. It said 27-1 at one point to come within a few points.
27-11.
So
and
ended
then
up
I think
being
at its biggest, it got to 29-13 to get within 2. So yeah,
27-11.
Yeah,
maybe I saw the wrong thing, but that makes more sense because they were down like 20-ish, 18 or whatever. Yeah, and then making that comeback late in the fourth there behind some good Pritchard minutes. Tatum did a couple of things good, but again, it's so Jekyll and Hyde with him right now. I thought it was a quiet performance from Jaylen Brown, who found some foul trouble early on in the game and just never got going at all. This was supposed to be a good matchup for him. Really, your only bright spot. Well, Pritchard aside, I thought your real bright spot obviously was in Porzingis. But again, you can't talk about Porzingis without talking about the toe on the line that really came back to hurt the team. As
what do you think? Didn't get a great look at it.
I didn't think the broadcast did a great job of really zooming in and letting us really get a look, but it did seem that it was too close for them to overturn, certainly. And like Porzingis, you had a parking lot to work with. You were wide open. I mean, he's got those long legs. You got to get just a bonehead mistake. I'm sure he's kicking himself about it, but yeah, that was huge because that would have turned it into a 1 point possession or one possession.
Yeah, 1 point game
there
with a timeout. So
yeah,
no matter what unless the Thunder hit a 3 the other way, you would have been.
So I'll let you talk for a minute here, Bob. Just your thoughts on just the way the game sort of finished up for them.
Well, I think everybody knew this was going to be a tough one for the Celtics. They gave up 150 and just got blown away in this building last year. They gave up 127 tonight to this team that just plays at a frenetic pace. An MVP candidate, frankly, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was that good tonight, able to just get a shot off against anybody. But you look at some of the decision-making in terms of just the coaching in this game. They go to Peyton Pritchard late over Drew Holiday, feeling the need to get something different at the guard position there, which is, of course, interesting. And Pritchard was really good. Holiday early got the Shea assignment and just got blown by routinely. Not to say that other guys wouldn't have in that spot, but I did think that they would put a little bit more size on Shea in this game, and that's what they did late with Tatum. So they did some things late in this game in terms of Pritchard's usage and Tatum guarding Shea that if they got to a little earlier, might have gotten them going earlier in this game. So it was good that Joe put them in a position to come back here, but probably slow to react to the way things were going earlier in this game. I thought too late, whatever they did to force more turnovers really worked too. I mean, they were just turning over Oklahoma possession after possession in that fourth quarter. And that's something that they've struggled to do.
It was just ball pressure.
Yeah. And, it's as simple as that, Jimmy. Like, we've asked Joe throughout the year, why aren't you forcing more turnovers? And he's like, you can do stuff, but you can't make the other team turn it over. Like, they have to do it. And, he's just kind of chalked it up to happenstance that the Celtics don't rank very high in turnovers, but that was something that happened last year too. So I think in terms of the way they're playing defense, it's a little bit more than just bad luck. The reason that they don't rank very high in assists here, in forced turnovers here. So the Thunder killed them in pace. It took the Celtics like a quarter and a half to score a fast break bucket. Once Porzingis got those back-to-back blocks in the second that sent Brown out, they finally got on the board there. So the Thunder looked more athletic. They looked more explosive overall. You had more guys who were able to get shots off on their own in this game. Jalen Williams killed them. Chet killed them at times. And then, of course, Shea was the leader of the team tonight in everything they did out there. Giddey, too. It's a really good team. So I don't think the world's ending with this loss. But you don't like going down 18, being the best team in the league.
We're gonna bring in Josue Pavon into the
What's
building.
up,
What's up, Josue?
fellas?
How you doing, dude?
How are we feeling about this game?
We're feeling
Not
mixed.
great.
Yeah, we're not
Mixed
feeling great.
reviews.
The chat is
reviews.
largely disappointed, I would say. A lot of people saying the Thunder are the better team. A couple people in here saying, well, here's one from Kieran, good loss overall, which I don't think good loss is ever something you want to say. But
It's tough to say that this year. You don't have to act
Oh,
like the
man,
world's ending.
Imagine if
Yeah.
you aligned the question with that, Bobby, to Joe Mazzulla. He would not like that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there were some players tonight that really didn't step up to the plate. So Josue, I'll let you sort of run with it here. You know, me and Bobby have been able to make a couple initial takes, but just your thoughts on maybe, we talked a lot about the ending, but I mean, this game from start to finish, what kind of stood out to you and what happened, I guess, for the Celtics to go down as big as they did there in that fourth quarter?
Well, what happened was SGA went off. The Celtics, I mean, the Thunder did a really good job just taking away everything, in my opinion, from Jalen. And Jalen went back to chucking 3-pointers and trying to not put the team on his back, but trying to get himself going. And it just wasn't working. I thought they did a really good job defending the wings. Took Tatum a little bit to get going. But to me, it really came down to the other guys, Jalen Williams, just guys who could create off the dribble. Even Josh Giddey got going in certain spurts, Lou Dort as well. I thought the Oklahoma City Thunder did a really good job of just being more aggressive. A lot of the times I feel like the Celtics just gave away too much space, whether it was against SGA, whether it was against Chet. I thought the guys got really comfortable out there. It's interesting, Bobby. I caught the tail end of what you were saying about Joe Mazzulla and forcing turnovers. And I think that's pretty much it when you're talking about what's missing. I just feel like they weren't taking away enough space. They weren't in these guys' faces until it mattered most, in that fourth quarter where they went onto that run and, 16-3 run. It was too little too late. When that clock was rolling, a lot of that had to do with the Oklahoma City Thunder being able to not only, build on that lead, but build on that momentum with guys like SGA and Chet Holmgren on the bench, to start that fourth quarter, the way they got out. I was happy for Joe Mazzulla to call that timeout as early as he did, but then there they win again, right? The Oklahoma City Thunder. And you got to give all the props in the world, of course, to Derek White, because without him, this thing is not even a game in those last couple of minutes. The defensive stops, the threes, just getting the guys going in the back-to-back threes essentially is what really woke up the team, in my opinion. And Tatum tried to do a little bit too. I thought that he was very patient in trying to get his offense going, but then Kristaps Porzingis at the end, misses the layup where, he could have got the 3-point play opportunity. But then all that is that's what happens when you're just flat out beat by a team that just had your number tonight. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're going to point to those last couple of moments in the final minute or final 2 minutes, but at the end of the day, I mean, OKC deserved this one. You want to see the Celtics go out there and steal one, or at least force overtime in that last minute. But Jalen misses a free throw. Those little things, the little mistakes is what really did them in at the very end. But let's face it, I mean, these guys didn't really deserve to win this game if you think about it.
7 losses this year, Jimmy. I feel like this is the third probably that was decided early. So they haven't had many games like this, and it's gonna go down as a clutch loss, right? Because they lost by 4 late. But
yeah, I was gonna say because of what they did in the fourth. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So Jimmy, though, and I'll let you make your point after. Where do you think they rank in forced turnovers?
The Celtics?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me? It sounds like not high because we were talking about it earlier.
He's got a big smirk on his face.
Yeah.
27th.
Interesting. So
you knew it had to be bottom.
I knew. Yeah. To make his point, it had to have been pretty bad, but I wanted Bobby to be able to hammer it home.
And if you go back to that Ime year, the 2022 team that was really dominant, they were only 13th that year, but the first Missoula year last year, they came in at 26th. So they've been bottom 5, 10 both years here under Missoula after, ranking fairly high. And again, there's not a lot of separation between the teams here, but you need a few more a game. And it looked like they were able to force those late. Early, as Josue said, just not enough ball pressure, not enough intensity on the defensive end. I thought their transition defense sucked in this game. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was.
And they've done that at times this year. I think they've cleaned it up over the last month or two here, but early in the season, they had some bad moments too. And a team like this is able to expose that. I mean, that should have been number one on their priorities coming in, was getting back. But missed layups, turnovers. The Celtics turned the ball over a ton early. I thought that was the story of the first quarter. That's just going to empower everybody on the Oklahoma side. I mean, everybody on that team, Josue and Jimmy, are fast, athletic, great finishers who love to get out on the run. And the Celtics really let them do that.
Good rebounders, too. I thought that killed the Celtics as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't rebound.
Yeah. That's what killed them.
Like, isn't that what, like, the Thunder don't rebound? So I thought the Celtics were, again, I mean, and I know the Thunder, they've got those stretch bigs now with Holmgren and Giddey, and those guys were hitting threes tonight. It seemed like the Celtics were willing to give those shots up, because certainly they weren't really up in their face. It seemed like those were pretty wide open shots for a lot of those Thunder players. And then
4-7 from Giddey's not normal.
No, right. So I mean, you just kind of have to tip your cap, I guess, in that situation. But even, SGA 5 for 8, and then who's this dude? Aaron Wiggins off the bench hits 2. So I mean, these shots were falling left and right for the Thunder. It's I'm always going to be disappointed when it's a premier sort of matchup and the Celtics fall short, because these are the games that you can go ahead and say, they're 26-7. Well, how many of those wins don't matter in the long run because it's against a garbage team that, they won't see in the playoffs? I want to see statement wins. So I'm thinking, okay, they lose on the road in Minnesota. Now they lose on the road here in OKC. Yeah, these are Western Conference teams in theory. And, obviously you won't see them again until the finals if you do. But this is where the team has had trouble in the NBA finals. And so these are the matchups that I circle, and I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans circle on the calendar, because these are the statement games that you want to show up and you want to prove that you can go in on the road and play tough for 4 quarters, and not if you're Jaylen Brown, this was a matchup that a lot of people thought was going to be huge for him to show that he can be a plus defender in the league and contain an MVP caliber player. He couldn't. He picked up 2 fouls before the ball was even tipped off practically. And then he kind of disappeared. Jason Tatum. Yeah, he played commendable defense, really good defense down the stretch, but where was that before? Right. You can't go down 20 points and then say, I'm going to start playing defense. Peyton Pritchard is getting put in the game to spark the team. That's unacceptable as far as no offense to Peyton Pritchard.
They do call him Sparky, right?
They do call him Sparky. Some of the greats call him that. But let's be honest. You've got all we talk about is they've got the best 5-6 guys deep in the league, and you need to go to the 7th and you need to go to Pritchard and Hauser and we need to commend Joe for pulling a rabbit out of a hat here in a game where there shouldn't be any need to do that. So that's disappointing for me for sure.
It's interesting too. I'm looking back. It looked like White opened the game on Shea. They put Chet.
Yeah, I thought that was different. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Bug.
Chet. They put Drew on the big. So it looked like the plan was to try to get Drew there on switches, right? They were expecting probably more pick and roll, but Shea was just kind of attacking them head on.
Yeah.
And the individual defenders on Shea weren't able to contain him until they switched to Tatum late. So I think that's an obvious second guess, is not going with more size against them. I actually thought, I think I said in the chat earlier this afternoon, Jimmy, that this would be a good one for Jaylen, as you mentioned there. It just kind of falling out of this game with fouls early and, attached to Dort, who's just kind of standing in the corner. I didn't think that was making good use of him, especially if Shea was going to attack head on, because I feel like that's where Jaylen's at his best, is just kind of honing in on a matchup and sticking with it. So overall, we can point to a bunch of different stuff. I feel like Joe just kind of came into this game and said, let's just roll with the same game plan and stuff we've been doing the last couple of weeks here. And it didn't adapt well to this game, where the Thunder are just a little bit of a different opponent than they've seen over the last couple of weeks here.
They just seem prepared for it, honestly, Bobby. Especially like the tendencies and the way SGA was going to try to maneuver his way straight through the paint, like you said, because he in my opinion, it could see how the Celtics have been defending lately, especially with guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday, and how those guys have been interchangeable on top of the key. He made sure that they weren't comfortable with doing that, especially early out. Early in the first quarter. They just set the tone, in my opinion. And I felt like, Drew, obviously, you can see the way the fourth quarter went for him. I mean, he never really found that rhythm in this game, and Mazzulla went with Pritchard to finish out the comeback that came up short.
And it's good timing to talk about Drew, Jimmy. He's been phenomenal defensively this year. So today's a little bit of an abnormal result for him on that end. And it's like again,
that's a tough cover too, buddy.
It's an
we got to give SGA's props. That's a tough
on the other side. So that's not why Drew landed on the bench, though. It's the offense right now, and you get 7 assists in this one. But we came into this year, Jimmy, saying, all right, Jalen's going to have the toughest time adapting, and he had a bad night tonight. But overall, he's had a great month plus before this. So he figured things out in terms of where he fits in on the offense. Drew, I'm not knocking what he's doing.
Let's talk about Drew.
Everything he's done for this team has been really subtle. Obviously defensively, he's commanding things. He's been awesome on that end. He's passing well. He's rebounding well. But he just doesn't seem super involved in the offense. And I know it's tough when you have 5 stars out there, but it's in the second units. Can you get him involved as a ball handler? In the starting lineup, can you put him in screen and roll actions to kind of have him involved in the role and, catch the ball there and make plays. Sometimes it just feels like he's floating a little bit. And in this game, the misses piled up and he ends up on the bench late.
I want to bring in our friend Sherrod Blakely, who's joining us here. Sherrod,
what's up, fellas?
What's going on, Sherrod?
You Gucci?
Oh, you and your young lingo.
Sorry.
Good? I'm good. I'm good, Jimmy.
He takes a sip of his coffee. Look at you, Sherrod. I like it. I like your type.
I'm just messing with you, Jimmy. I'm good though.
Yeah, you knew what I meant.
I knew what you meant.
You got to learn that. You're a professor. You got to be able to understand the jargon, the lingo.
Unfortunately, you're correct.
He's hip. That's why. He's in it.
Celtics. What do you think, Sherrod? Celtics look kind of mid tonight.
You know what? This was a game that I thought was more about what Oklahoma City did than not necessarily what the Celtics didn't do. Oklahoma City is a good team.
Yes.
They're top 5, and they got a top 5 MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous. They've got probably the Rookie of the Year on their roster as well. And then you start looking at the guys that contribute, the guys that they have that are playing. They're a good team. I mean, and to their credit, they withstood a serious blow by the Celtics in the fourth quarter and came out with the win. They made their free throws. They got big shots. They got some breaks that they didn't necessarily plan for, like Porzingis' foot toeing the line. Again, Oklahoma City did enough good things in this game to deserve the win. And obviously, I think you guys touched on it earlier. Drew Holiday seemed to have taken a holiday off on this one and just was not effective. And I will say this about Joe Mazzulla. I give him props for this game because Drew Holiday was not very good, and he stuck with Pritchard longer than he normally would. Yep. And I thought that decision gave the Celtics a chance to possibly win this game. Whereas I think
changed everything.
Yeah, if you would have stuck with Drew, they probably would lose this game by 15 or 20 points. I thought Drew was just that non-impactful. Whereas Pritchard was making plays, and his presence alone was, I thought, helping them just kind of rally and chip away at this thing. So I give Joe props for actually making I thought, a pretty important coaching decision down the stretch that gave them a chance to win.
But there's no moral victories, Josue, but it feels like when you come out of this, seeing in December for Pritchard said a lot for him. He really got going there. But, Hauser, you know what you're going to get more or less. His role's a little more limited. When you add up all the different things Pritchard can do for you, he's looking like that, not the 6th man because that's kind of alpha this team, but he's that 7th man. If you're going to cut down the 7 guys in the playoffs, he might be that, guy right at the end there when you cut things off and really go tight.
Well, we've seen in the past too, when the Celtics are down double digits, that's been the guy that typically sort of gets that extended minutes, you know what I mean? When he just to kind of get him going, get his flow going, but now I feel like this season he's finding other ways to be effective, whether it's making the extra pass, whether it's
So
a
good on the
deflection.
boards.
Yeah, the rebounds creating, like he's just constant energy on both ends. And I think that's why you're able to earn yourself a whole fourth quarter the way he did, especially in this type of game and that type of atmosphere, and guys usually rally around that, as the Celtics did. I mean, of course they fell short, but you look around, you're like, man, Peyton's still in here, Peyton's balling. You want to obviously complete the comeback because you're on the cusp of it, but also you see someone like Pritchard getting that opportunity. So yeah, it's too bad that it didn't turn out the way, or at least the Celtics were unable to force overtime. But it's a great opportunity for him, and obviously it's something that he can build off of.
And I don't want
to go ahead,
to
Jimmy.
make it seem like I don't want to make it seem like I don't appreciate what Pritchard did tonight or what he's on the team to do, because I think this was a good example of that. I just think I'm a little disappointed that some of the stars, again, Porzingis aside, but the guys that are supposed to be, bringing it for 4 quarters, Tatum, Brown, who we can talk about a little bit later, Drew, we've already discussed. Horford didn't do much tonight either, obviously. And I just feel like against a contending team, Sherrod, a team that, again, they're out west, so you most likely, maybe you'll see him again, who knows? But this is a team that the Celtics should be able to. They shouldn't go down 18 in this team.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. The ending, yeah, sure. You just take a look at the final score. Okay, yeah, and it was a good game. It was entertaining. Commend them for the comeback. But how many times over the last few years have we seen this happen? They go down big because they don't play complete basketball on both ends of the court. They put a charge in there late in the game, but ultimately comes up short. They run out of time. And this reminds me of that.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, I agree with you. Probably the only thing I was really, really, really disappointed in this game. There are things I wasn't crazy about, but disappointment was the fact that, to your point, they allowed themselves, they dug themselves a tremendous hole. And remember, OKC did a lot of good things with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the bench.
Right.
That stretch where they pushed it up to like 15, 16 points. He was doing the same thing you and I were doing, just sitting back, chilling, watching things play out. And that can't happen. You can't allow, an MVP candidate on a team to sit on the bench and that team not just maintain the lead, but extend it. And that was really disappointing to see that happen. But again, you credit Oklahoma City. I mean, there's a reason why they've been one of the top teams in the Western Conference most of the season. They're good. And you look at some of the bodies that they've put to bed. They've beaten Denver. They've beaten Minnesota.
They've beaten Denver.
Yeah. I mean, so let's not pretend as if this was a team. This ain't Detroit, all right?
Right.
This isn't. This isn't one of the. Yeah,
this is your squad. That's right.
This is a legitimate team that beat you when you played. You didn't play a great game, but you had stretches where you looked really good, but it just wasn't enough to get the win. And it wasn't as if you played a bad team. So I'm not mad. Disappointed that they to your point, Jimmy, disappointed that they put themselves in such a hole that they had to just fight and claw just to get back in the game. But as far as like the opponent and how things played out, this is what good teams are supposed to do at home.
Yeah. But, to Jimmy's point, though, you anticipated that, like, showdown. You wanted to see like a 140 to 145 type, you know what I mean? Like that type of knockout.
Not that many points, but it's defense, Josue, too.
What I mean, though.
No, like, I do, but
you look at you look at what Vegas had on this game, and just in general, the both teams with the winning streak on the line. Celtics coming in with 6 straight. It was that type of atmosphere, but you want to see the Celtics match that all the way through. And I felt like it came down to the fourth quarter. It was just like, oh man, we got 7 minutes left. We're running out of time here. And they kind of snapped out of it. But credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder, though. In a few weeks, this could be the number 1 team in the Western Conference. I mean, they're that close, obviously, when you look at this winning streak that they're on.
Now,
yeah, I didn't want to get ahead of myself coming into the year, but I thought they could be a home court team just based on the flashes you saw last year. And this guy right here already emerging as an MVP candidate a year ago, plus Chet. Joining the mix here. Cason Wallace has been really good, their draft pick. This is a team that could make the finals. I don't think you can rule them out. Like the way they played Denver, the way they've played other teams in the West, and this record through the first quarter of the season, they're young. They probably need a little bit of a veteran presence here.
Mhm.
I think that's the one thing they've really lacked through this rebuild, and it doesn't seem like they are interested in adding to this group, just given the picks and the young players they have here. So that could limit them, along with the lack of playoff experience. But it wouldn't be stunning at all to see a Thunder Celtics finals.
No, but the one thing, Bobby, that gives me reason to pause is that they're a good team, and talent-wise, from top to bottom, they're in that mix. But teams like Oklahoma City, I'm not sold on them or even want to rent them based upon the fact that playoffs are best of sevens, not one game elimination.
Right.
And I don't know if they have the ability to sustain the level of play that we saw in this game and withstand the kind of run that the Celtics, put on them over the course of a 7-game series. To me, they are going to be a feast or famine postseason team. They're either going to get to the conference finals or they're going to get knocked out in the first round. I don't think a second round exit is in their future. I think they're either going to be early out of the playoffs or go really, really far. Because to me, I just don't. I can't buy into this team as being pretty good and make a little bit of noise. They're either going to go out with a whimper or they're going to go out with a bang. There's no in between, I don't think, with this team.
Yeah,
It'd be a
especially in
pretty
the
fast
Wild
jump.
West too, Sherrod. I mean, you
Yeah.
got teams that could be like this could be one of the best in-season tournaments that we've seen. I mean, excuse me,
Yeah.
play. I knew it was going to do that. I knew it was going to play-in tournament that we've seen when you look at the way the Western Conference is breaking down in that the bottom portion, right? I mean, going into the playoff, that could be the Lakers. It could be one of those teams waiting for OKC. So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Western Conference, it'll be interesting. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think it's a safe bet that they'll be one of those top 3 Western Conference, maybe 4 teams that stays in that vicinity, if you ask me. So home court is for sure in their future. I mean, it's early, but I don't see them dropping off into outside the top 5 in the West.
Well, let's say they're playing one of the winners of the play-in tournament, right? Let's say that winner is Dallas. Would you feel confident that they're going to beat Dallas? If let's say it's the Lakers, would you feel confident they're going to beat
That's
LeBron
what I
and the
mean.
Lakers?
Those are the teams I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, as good as they are, I don't think anyone would be shocked if they play the winner of the play-in tournament, and if it's someone like Dallas or the Lakers, that they get smoked in the first round.
Right.
What happened with Jaylen Brown tonight?
He was horrible. He
Yeah,
was bad in
again,
every sense of the word. I mean, there's just no even like mincing words about that. He was bad.
I mean, and not just on offense too. We're talking about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander here.
Who
And
couldn't guard him.
this is one of the reasons why this loss in this game is disappointing to me, is because this is a marquee matchup, right? This is a game that I think a lot of people had said, I want to look and see how this matchup goes. And there's a lot of people who say Jaylen Brown can be a great defender in this league, and he should be in the conversation for one of the all defensive teams.
I disagree with that, but keep going.
Right. But there are some people who feel that way, and I'm sure
Besides Jaylen,
yeah, right.
because I mean, like literally, like Jimmy, not even trying to be funny about it, but like Jalen's the only one who's kind of talked about Jaylen as an All NBA defender.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about it.
You sure, Jimmy? You sure?
I'm not saying that he is, but I think
I'm not seeing it in print. I'm not seeing it in podcasts. I don't see it in reports. Yeah.
There's some stats out there, Bobby. I think you showed me a stat recently that
I haven't heard one person say it.
There was some article that somebody had him as like an honorable mention of an honorable.
Bobby, let's hear the data.
Blog you're reading, Jimmy? Jaylen Brown.
It was like
no. Bobby's got the data. Bobby's got the data. Let's go, Bobby. What you got?
Bobby's like, it's my article. No.
Point being, boys. Point being.
Sway throwing shade at Bobby's article. You ain't right, Joe.
No, I know Bobby wouldn't write that.
I like this defense this year. I mean, opponents are shooting 41% against him, which for a wing's really good. I said at the top of the show, when he's able to hone into an individual assignment, he can be awesome. I think it's the switching and some of the more team-based stuff that throws him off on that end. But he's been really good this year, at least in comparison to the last 2 years. Now, all defense is a tough threshold to break through to. But I think in terms of just leveling up his play on that end of the court this year, he's been better. It was the offense that was the problem for him tonight. Trying to force up shots over multiple bodies in the lane. I usually like that aggressiveness, but he wasn't really able to get to the cup. He was more, forcing up hooks and floaters inside. Missed all his threes. I like the transition aggressiveness early that drew those 2 free throws after Porzingis' blocks. but that's about all he got here. And he tried to do too much in isolation in the half court, which can lead to turnovers, which can lead to bad shots. I mean, he is always taking difficult shots. And this is the thing for him and Tatum in this game. Brown's pace isn't a problem. You know, like he'll turn the ball over and make mistakes by trying to force the issue. But in certain games, I think that's appropriate. In this game overall, I feel like they just didn't know when to go and didn't know when to slow it down and execute because they had bad sets in the half court throughout this game, but they also had opportunities to run where they just didn't take them. And, you know, I thought Tatum struggled in that regard early before he kind of calmed down and had I thought a really good game. But, you know, Brown, does this concern you outside of just a bad night with a lot of misses? Like, he's been so good over the last month plus here that I'm not panicking off this one. The 3-point shooting, as usual, has been a little weird with him, and that's going back a couple years now. But this one, to me, is just an off night. And a tough matchup where the other perimeter defenders and the switching on the defensive side for Oklahoma City is just so athletic and long.
And that, Bobby, that last point you made about their athleticism and their length, to me, that's what makes this type of team a difficult challenge for the Celtics.
Isn't Chet something? Oh, man.
Well, the thing about Porzingis is used to being matched up with someone that he can either take down on a block because they're too little, or he can, just rise over them with the 3-ball. And Chet is looking him basically eye to eye.
Yeah.
Who's basically a younger, more athletic, better ball handling version of himself. I don't think he shoots the ball as well as Porzingis, but he's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. And that being said, Porzingis still got you 30 and some change. So he was able to do.
Porzingis was awesome.
I thought this was one of, if not his best game individually. He took on a matchup that was not significantly in his favor, and he maximized it. He was great. Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday, those three in particular were average to below average most of the game. And Tatum, I thought, did a lot of good things, especially when he switched out, I thought, on Shea that late in the game. But part of that had to do with the fact that Shea was in foul trouble. And Tatum was smart enough to take advantage of that at both ends of the floor. And so if you're the Celtics, you're disappointed that you lost the game. But when you start looking at just the type of team you played and just start looking out east, are there any teams that look similar to OKC? I say no.
Indiana.
But Indiana doesn't have a top 5 MVP candidate.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I was gonna say, man.
Up there, man.
He just had a 20 assist, 0 turnover game.
Listen.
He doesn't cook like SGA.
He's a good player, and frankly, he should be in the All NBA conversation. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But
he's still a solid chef.
Would I consider him a top 5 player?
Absolutely nothing without him.
I agree. But is he a top 5 MVP candidate? I don't think so. Top 10. If we're saying top 10,
he's 6 if he's not top 5.
I know the point you're trying to make sure.
Yeah. He's very good. I just I'm not quite ready to put him in that category because the one thing that Shea has done that I think people overlook is his impact on winning. He puts up numbers, but his team wins. And you can say,
good point in the chat here too. The Pacers defense is as bad as it gets. So that's a key difference for sure.
Right. You start looking at that OKC roster from top to bottom, and they've got some good players, but they're no other than Chet and Shea. Is there anyone that you're looking at like, damn, he's really, really, really good? Not really. They've got good players, but they don't have any
solid role players.
They got nice, solid role players. And you look at Indiana and around Halliburton. There's not a huge drop off in the role players that he's playing with versus the ones that Shea is. And yet you look at the records, it's a pretty stark difference between the two. That's why I can't put him in that category. But Halliburton is a great player. Just because you're not a top 5 MVP doesn't mean you suck. I don't think Tatum's a top 5 MVP candidate, and he's really good, obviously.
I know, man. How many years are we going to do this? This is the year he's going to be in the conversation, man, because I don't think this is the year. But anyways, what I was going to say, though, about Jalen real quick, I just feel like teams, especially teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder that have the athletic wings, they have the switchable, guards that can play wings, guys that can cause fits on the defensive end of the floor when they feel like it, right? And tonight was one of those games. Like they were ready for this challenge. And I felt like once they saw what Jalen was doing, they wanted to take him out of his comfort zone. And that's exactly what they did, especially in transition, forcing him to his left. I felt like that was a big struggle with him in this game. He would go down the middle, and I felt like sometimes if he wasn't turning the ball over, he just couldn't find the move he wanted to make to attack the rim. And even though he was trying, he just couldn't find his rhythm. And then the three-pointer started. You know, it was sort of that pattern he couldn't get out of, I felt like.
Guys, before we move on to the next part of the show, we want to remind everybody that our good friends at FanDuel are the reason we can bring this show to you guys today. So you want to make sure you go to FanDuel.com/Boston and get free. Hold on a second. Get $150 in bonus bets when you place a winning $5 money line bet. We got some. What is it? The final week of the NFL season coming up here, guys. I know fantasy football is over, but the final regular season week is coming up. There's a lot to play for in terms of seeding. You know what the other thing is? There's some info out there. You can look it up, but there's a lot of players now that have to perform to a certain level to hit their bonuses, right? So you find those players, right? You put a couple of bucks on them, hitting the overs on whatever their numbers are. It's a good way to make a couple of bucks. But again, if you want to cash in on the FanDuel Sportsbook deal that we have going on, you can get $150 in bonus bets when you place a winning $5 money line bet. So you want to go to your app, want to go to FanDuel Sportsbook, download the app, check out those money lines for the week coming up, and place your bets for that. And then I want to also give a shout out to our good friends at HelloFresh, HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. Use the code CLNS free and get free breakfast for life. I know Bobby is still working through his breakfast for life, swimming in muffins right here.
Yeah.
But no, guys, honestly, HelloFresh is great. You know, even though the holidays are over, the supermarkets, the grocery stores, all the markets are still busy. I was there today at one of them, and the shelves were practically still empty. So this is a great way to cut out that whole issue with HelloFresh. You can actually save money with fresh recipes delivered, cheaper than takeout, cheaper than those expensive supermarkets that are still charging an arm and a leg. Thanks a lot, inflation. Pre-portioned ingredients. You'll never waste money on excess food. And if you're like me, you got home at 8 o'clock tonight and you tossed on the game. You didn't have time to, be whipping up this elaborate meal from scratch. So HelloFresh kind of does all that work for you, and you're able to just get it cooked up. Everything's fresh. Everything's farm to table. Good stuff for you. So again, that's HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. Use code CLNS free and get free breakfast for life. Okay, guys, let's reset here for a second. Celtics go into this one. They drop 127 to 123. We talked a little bit about just the being able to really put together 4 quarters of effort. And Bobby, I thought you would have screened this by now, but you haven't. It's the defense. It's the defense, isn't it? I mean, we can talk about Jaylen Brown 0 for 8 from 3, and yeah, that's obviously a cause of concern. But when I look at these two teams, I don't see a Thunder team that should have been able to score as easily as they were. And I know that Holmgren had a few threes that maybe he doesn't hit, but what's this team going to do to really, I guess, clamp down? I mean, you talked about it earlier, Bobby. They don't force turnovers. It seemed like OKC was able to score in transition whenever they wanted to tonight. And so I guess we'll start with you, Bobby, but I want to go around the block on this one.
Yeah, there's a couple issues there. Obviously, the individual defense wasn't great in this game, and I think that can wane at times for this group. I think they leave the middle of the floor open a little bit too much in that mid-range area for some, great mid-range shooters on that Oklahoma team. These kind of rosters that are a little bit more comfortable shooting there, I think, give the Celtics some more issues than the teams that are just, dedicating their offense to reaching the rim or, getting out and shooting threes. So that's something the Celtics are willing to give up that some teams like taking. So I think that's a first issue here. The turnovers you mentioned, the rebounding, Josue mentioned earlier, 10 offensive rebounds for Oklahoma, a little bit more than you want to see. And Joe talks about that a lot. There'll be possessions where the first shot defense is good. And then, you're giving up offensive rebounds. Those are almost always going to be really good scoring opportunities off of those. So that was an issue tonight. Can't figure out how to force turnovers. So you end up being the slower team in this game off that. 14 too many for the Celtics, 12. A solid number, mostly carried by what they did in the fourth quarter there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think you probably needed more size at the point of attack against Shea. And Celtics played a little too big at times in this game, it felt like. They went to those double big looks that have been pretty good for them, but really weren't tonight. And, then I think they made some good adjustments late in terms of just going small and, more versatile and fast and perimeter based out there, because the Thunder really aren't a big team inside. Like, you're not really worried about them posting you up or a big man in there scoring a ton at the basket. Chet, as Sherrod mentioned, there is more of a perimeter-based player in terms of his offense. So the transition's what killed you tonight. And that one's just as simple as getting back a lot of the time, but it also goes back to some of the dumb things the Celtics were doing on offense tonight with the turnovers and everything else. So there were a lot of issues defensively in this game. They've been good on that end, Jimmy, this year. I really haven't had issues with their defense this season, but tonight wasn't a good night.
They just didn't put up enough fight and resistance to what OKC was looking to do. I mean, they shot, 53% from the field. I think they shot better than 45% from three-point range. And a lot of those looks that they were getting were lightly contested to wide open type of shots. And you just don't allow that to happen against a good team like them. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just absolutely controlled the action. I mean, he went off for 30 and some change, but you felt that if he really, really, really wanted to get buckets, he could get them anytime he wanted to. That is the sign of a great player. That's the sign of a great team recognizing how to be impactful. And again, I think if they describe what they saw in the Celtics defense, they would probably describe it as we just took what they gave us. They gave us great looks. They gave us opportunities to attack off the dribble. They gave
those two Chet threes late were killers, and they were both hedging away from him.
I mean, look at the way the game started when they set the tone by knocking down those 3-point shots. I feel like in the past, when that happens, the Celtics defense tends to try to let's stop the bleeding from the perimeter, and all of a sudden you're getting attacked, right down the teeth of the defense. That's exactly what OKC did, and obviously with one of the better players, MVP candidate style, in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but he wasn't the only one, right? There was other guys getting involved as well, seeking high percentage shots, but also blending it in with those outside shots that I felt like just really crushed the Celtics as they were kind of just, trying to gather themselves and trying to put together the run that they ultimately did in that second half that was in the fourth quarter.
You mentioned it a little bit. Speaking of defense, I want to keep that theme for a second. We're not concerned about the defense, but are you concerned about this guy? Anybody? Jrue Holiday. Certainly, when you talk about players that
he's dealing with an injury too. Someone mentioned
not yet. I'm not too concerned, but yeah.
I've got him. He's on my watch list. Let's put it that way. Yeah. He's on my watch
list. Put it this way.
Like,
I'm glad Pritchard. I'm glad Mazzulla did what he did in that fourth quarter with Pritchard. It's kind of like, hey man, this can happen. So.
Yeah. I'm not concerned, but he is absolutely on my watch list of guys that, I'm not ready to hit the panic button, but I'm watching your ass right now to see if you're going to flip this around, because Jrue is a really good player. But these are the kind of games where you wonder,
where are we on this meter, Sherrod? Are we at Zannis level, or are we closer to Bobby right now?
I am probably in that yellow-orange range.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's kind of where I'm at. But the thing about Jrue,
he's one bad performance away from putting that calm together. You can put that calm together.
I give him two.
He's got the Brogdon thing, Sherrod. He's missing everything inside. And that happened to Brogdon last year, too. It's kind of weird that those guys are both going through that issue here in their first years.
Missing all those layups, yeah.
Oh, my God. When he posts a guy, it always goes in and out. The cutting layup early that he missed.
Yeah, he went underneath tonight and missed that, too.
And I asked him about that earlier in the year, and he's like, they're just not going in. There's nothing specific he's looking at.
Wait, about the layups?
The missed layups, yeah.
The missed layups, yeah.
Sure.
Is that around the time? Is that when the ankles start going? At the age that is Jrue ahead of it here? Is this a he's getting older type thing, or you think it's an injury thing?
It's hard to say because he's in that weird limbo age wise where injury is it injuries or is it father time? Who's hurting you? Why are you hurting? But I give Jrue the benefit of the doubt simply because First and foremost, he's a hell of a player. We know it, and he hasn't been on the downslide consistently enough to where you feel like,
No, he's
oh
hitting his
God.
threes.
Yeah. So he's doing just enough to keep you a little bit off balance as to whether this is father time or whether he's just in a rut. But like I said, he's on my watch list. I'm watching him much more closely now than I have done before because I want to have a sense of whether, this is just, again, father time doing what father time is going to do to every player in the NBA, or is this just more of a health type thing? Do we need to talk about load management at some point with Drew?
He took the Spurs game off. Yeah, he's dealing with an elbow sprain, I think they're saying. So that could have played into it tonight. Who knows what he's playing through night to night?
But
you guys aren't gonna admit that, but
I love that Pritchard is ready though. I love that he's keeping himself engaged to make the most of these opportunities. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that, again, I'm convinced that Pritchard is going to help them win a playoff game at some point, somewhere down the line. When they get to the postseason, something's going to go wrong for the Celtics in a bad way, and they're going to look at Peyton and be like, give us a little something, and he's going to say, I'm not going to give you a little something. I'm going to give you the game-winning package right here. I'm going to not be on Sherrod's watch list. I'm going to be that dude.
Or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm going to hit like 3 threes in a row. They're going to call a timeout, and I'm going to be doing my little thing that I did at Oregon whenever I made big shots.
Mike Green's going to be like, hey, another one, bang.
Exactly. Bang, bang, bang. Exactly.
Pritchard.
Yeah.
So one thing for both of those guys when they're in with this group is they need to find ways to stay involved, and that's tough because I feel like they're both the fifth option when they're out there. So what are you doing? You're just kind of staying off to the side. Drew's been awesome as a rebounder this year. He's never rebounded like this. So you give him credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Pritchard, similar story. You'd like to get him involved more in the screening game, but I'm sure that's, not super familiar for him. And the one thing too is they're attacking matchups, and I'm sure the best defender on the other team isn't exactly on Holiday all the time, so he's sort of setting up other guys in that regard. The tough thing with Holiday this year, and I do think the scoring needs to expand a little bit for him. They got to figure out ways to get him involved in that sense. But everything else he's giving you is just really subtle. If it's the screening, if it's the rebounding, certainly on the defensive end. I mean, I feel like Joe just gave him the keys early on and said, run that side of the ball. Because I think he's doing everything there in terms of just organizing them on that end. So, you know me, Jimmy, I got labeled the Drew hater early on, but I've learned to appreciate all the little things.
You're just
that he
a
brings to the
contrarian.
table here.
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
the thing,
Bobby, you should be clamoring for Drew to come up. I'm surprised you didn't start the show.
I'm not doing it anymore. Me and John talked about that last show.
I feel like he was almost hinting at it, but he's not quite.
There was a team meeting between John and Bobby to discuss that. So they won't get into the specifics of the team meeting, but everything has been worked out.
Love that.
Maybe someone else will say it.
Exactly. The thing I'd like to see Drew do a little bit more of is finding ways to score off the ball, like cuts along the baseline. Do some of the things that force defenses to actually move a little bit more when he's out on the floor. Because right now, when he's looking to score, it's either with the 3-point shot or he's playing bully ball. There's no third way of him generating offense. And I think he has that ability in him, even at this advanced age for an NBA player. I still think he can find other ways to score. And I like to see them experiment with that a little bit. Because right now he just needs to find ways to get easy buckets, just to see the ball go through the net. And again, cuts to the basket, particularly when you're playing with a guy like Jason Tatum, who's going to draw so much damn attention, who's showing more and more a willingness to pass the ball. I mean, that one pass, where he drove late in the game and the behind back pass to Porzingis that was a little bit off the mark. But the fact that he was thinking about giving it up on a drive to the basket, those are the little things that, again, Tatum, it's subtle things that he's getting better at because the big picture things he's already established himself as being a lead in.
Joe says this a lot, and I know we got to nitpick everything about this game, but I don't think there's like fundamental things here. I don't think there's fundamental things here that we have to look at and say like this guy's doing this wrong or this guy isn't doing enough in this role. And I bet I don't see any quotes from Joe out there tonight, but I bet he said there were just stretches in this game where they just weren't doing the little things that they have to do to win these games. Like
I agree.
the stretch between the third and the fourth was so bad, and just in terms of getting back, taking the right shots, executing offensively, the turnovers early. Like, I think Josue said it. You want to see more of a consistent effort front to start in this game, and I do think effort probably waned a little bit in this game for whatever reason. Guys missed shots, guys had frustrating plays, and did that leak into their defense, Jimmy? Yep. We've heard that from them in the past, and I think we saw that between the third and the fourth quarters. I mean, that's where, what'd you say it was, Sherrod? It was like 8-ish, 12-ish at that point, and then it got up to 18.
Right.
This game never should have got up to 18.
Right. Guys were in their feelings too.
I think I texted you guys. I was like, this got out of hand. Like,
yeah. That never should have happened. This should have been a 5 to 10 point game the whole way.
Well, especially when it gets out of hand when you got Chet and SGA on the bench. The way they started that fourth quarter. One of the better timeouts that Joe Mazzulla called today was when he called that one. And right out of the timeout, they got a layup, But yeah, I just feel like with the Celtics, especially in the second half, it's like they're able to fix their mistakes, but there's still that lag. You know what I mean? They're able to, like in this one, they were able to put together the run that they did in that fourth quarter. But all of a sudden, it was 4 minutes left, and they were still down it was still a 2-possession game. I just think the Celtics, with the energy and the way OKC was able to just really, I mean, whether the starters were out, whether they were in, whether they're on the floor or whatever, it didn't matter. Guys just kept that momentum. I felt like the Celtics were constantly fighting that, and that was the big run. I felt like where the Celtics finally snapped out of it, but they just couldn't. It was too uphill of a battle.
We don't get to play it much because the Celtics don't lose a ton. So I'm playing with graphics right now, and I think it's time to play.
The desktop.
Wait a minute. Wait the hell up. You got my boy Sam on this. Are you serious?
I didn't create this. This is an old blame pie. I don't know how Sam got.
I was going to say.
That question mark used to be Marcus.
He wasn't great.
I know. Sam is taking a ricochet shot right now, but
no, Smart would have been half the pie the way people used to talk about him.
I like how Porzingis and Derek White are not on this graphic because they're never going to be the reason. Clearly. So we don't have to ever worry about them.
I was saying this the other day. I can't remember a Celtic who has a higher approval rating than Derek. Like you can't find a guy who doesn't like Derek at this point.
Right.
And why would you?
Thomas.
He had a campaign T-shirt on.
That'd be close.
That
would be really close.
You probably had people who said like Thomas can't be the first option on a great team or stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I mean he can't play defense and things like that.
Yeah, so like different guys, stars especially, you'll nitpick them all day. I don't think you can say a bad thing about Derek. I haven't seen anyone say anything.
I don't think there'll ever be a game where we blame Sam too, but.
Oh, there will be. Trust me.
We'll find one.
I'm just like, come on, y'all guys. I mean, Sam does not belong in this damn conversation.
All right, let's pretend he doesn't exist.
Let's pretend Sam doesn't.
Put him in the crust.
Exactly.
Obviously, we're not going to.
Actually, you know what? You put
tonight's a big slice of Jalen and Drew.
Yeah, we're not going to give it to Mazzulla.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Drew
I wasn't.
I knew it.
I knew it. Changed. The blame changed.
Damn
Can't blame Marcus anymore.
Leave my guy alone, man. Leave my guy alone. He doesn't
Look at
belong
that face.
here.
Look like he's got to tell us.
It was some magic right there. That we just got a whole new blame pie, just like that, on demand.
Yeah, Marcus looks like a guy who told us to shut the F up, doesn't he? Look at him.
I love it. That's my guy. That's my guy. I love my guy.
I can't figure out why he would.
Yeah, that's the look he gave Max. I think
that's my guy.
Damn. All right. Well, I'm not taking it down until we get your answers. Who gets the slice?
I'm going to give a big slice to our good friend Drew. More so than Jalen, only because part of Drew's job in this game was to slow down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a little bit, and he didn't do that. And offensively, he missed a lot of. I thought he missed opportunities, not so much missed shots, but missed opportunities to put his imprint in a positive way in this game. And Jalen just had a bad game. But Jalen, if you start really breaking down like the season in terms of good Jalen and bad Jalen games,
Mhm.
the good obviously significantly outweighs the bad. Whereas Drew, it's a little bit closer to the Mendoza line between the good.
Yeah.
Good,
Here's
you know,
John Zannis'
John's.
flame
Yeah,
pie.
who's doing this? Oh, this is almond. It's got almond written all over it.
Oh, I hate y'all. I hate all
I
of
thought it was
y'all.
Jimmy, but I was like, no, this is almond.
I
Almond's doing
wasn't
it.
gonna do it, but I'm glad.
I hate all of you all.
Oh, is this you? Is this Jimmy?
No, Amit did this one.
It is
but-
almond. All right.
but I was thinking it for sure.
I'm gonna send this to John.
Yeah, put that on a t-shirt.
Exactly. John's
John-
flame pie.
John's James blame pie.
John,
It's
Oh,
more than
geez.
any other. I'm really excited to go back and watch this game because there was definitely a lot of pull and tug between the coaches here. Good adjustments on both sides. I think the Thunder caught the. I thought the Thunder caught the Celtics off guard with some things they did. I
Mhm.
thought the Celtics did some really good things late in this game to make it close, and we've mentioned a few of them. So this, to me, there's been a few losses this year I've hated. The Magic one, certainly. The Indy one really wasn't great in the tournament. The Hornets one was just despicable. But as we've mentioned here tonight, this game shouldn't have gotten out of hand, but this isn't a horrible loss to this team, especially at the end of a road trip here. And, the schedule is not going to get any easier, so we'll see where this takes them.
Right.
The Jazz have caught fire in a way I really didn't notice. They're coming up on Friday. You got the Wolves and Bucks back-to-back next week. You have 2 games against the Pacers this weekend back-to-back, which is always challenging. So this could be maybe the toughest 2-week stretch of the Celtics this year after a couple easy ones against the Spurs and some other teams.
Yeah, on my watch list, along with our good friend Drew Holiday, is Joe Mazzulla, because I think this upcoming stretch is going to say a lot about where he has grown as a coach, because you're playing teams that are feisty, teams that are talented, teams that are going to force you to get out of whatever comfort zone you're in as a coach. I thought he did a great job of tonight, not leaning on his comfort zone, which was, let's go with the fourth quarter Drew Holiday binky, even though it's not really working for us. And he got out of that. He went with Peyton, which I thought was a great adjustment on his part. Is he going to make similar moves when if Jaylen Brown is struggling with his shot? Would you go with a Sam Hauser for a little bit longer if Sam is maybe having positive impact while he's in the game? Is he willing to do that type of stuff? Those are to me, that's where you start making that legitimate, tangible evolution from being a pretty good coach to a really good coach, because really good coaches are not going to get in the feelings of themselves or their players if he has to sit a max player. If you're a max player and you're not playing a max player kind of game, and a guy making a third or a tenth of what you're making is playing better, he's going to play. He's going to play more minutes. And it was great to see Joe step out and do something along those lines tonight with Pritchard over Drew. And I'd be interested to see how he's going to handle that going forward with a Jaylen Brown or a Porzingis or even a Tatum.
Mhm.
Those are the kind of things that Joe, he's got to be better at. And he's going to get opportunities, I think, in the next 4 or 5 games to kind of really put that particular potential growth spurt of his to use.
Right. That's a great point, Sherrod, especially in this game, like you mentioned, against SGA, where you needed your QB1, so to speak, to have one of those games, like Bobby said. It's a lot of the success of this team on the offensive end of the floor. Drew's been a part of that, and whether it's being the facilitator and getting guys doing those hockey assists and all that, and that's been great. But it's been the defensive side of things where it's like, man, like that's what's really making this team, you know what I mean? That backcourt, as tough as it is with him and Derek White, and that's what we were so excited to see. And obviously, it's been a success, especially on that end of the floor. But this was one of those tests where you're like, you were really hoping you get a classic duel, and it wasn't quite that. Even though the Celtics did make it interesting in that fourth quarter, we didn't quite get that back and forth that we thought we would get. And I think Drew Holiday, if he was able to find his offense just off the strength of defensive stops and all that, I think we get a much better performance out of him. But the way SGA got going, I think probably discouraged him, and it just really, he couldn't find his rhythm. But yeah, like you said, Sherrod, credit to Joe Mazzulla, because that's the kind of decision you have to make, because you know what you needed from him in this game, and he knew it. Okay, I'm not getting it, and I'm getting some of that energy. I'm getting a guy who's impacting the game in Pritchard. I'm riding the hot hand, and he did it the entire way. He didn't falter. You know what I mean? That second, the 2-minute mark, or at any point down the stretch, he's stuck with it. So yeah, I credit him for doing that for sure.
And this was a little bit different for Pritchard to get minutes because he wasn't putting up big numbers in terms of points and things like that, but he was dropping dimes. Had, I think, 1 turnover, 4 assists. And to me, plus minus is always misleading, but when you're on the road and you're playing a team that for the most part is playing better than you, if you're able to have a good plus minus, which he did, he was +9 when he was on the floor, better than any other Celtic. And to me, that was one of the few times where that stat actually meant something, because it meant that when he was out there, he was doing positive things, or the team as a group was doing positive things. And in a game like this on the road against a team that good, where one of your best players is not playing well, actually a couple of your best players aren't playing particularly well, having someone who can come in there and give you a little bit of spark with their play and their presence and their potential. Yeah, it was good to see. So, and again, go ahead, Bobby.
I'm reading the Globe, and I don't even think they mentioned this on the broadcast tonight, but there was someone missing on the Celtics tonight.
Who?
Assistant coach Sam Cassell.
He's a little under the weather.
Yeah, missed tonight's game with an illness. I'm sure that didn't help.
No, it did not. Now we're talking about Pritchard. Other than Pritchard,
that was weird.
Yeah, right.
Like what else is Bobby? Okay.
Little tidbit from Bobby. Pay attention.
Oh no,
Bobby.
I was laughing the way Jimmy said, no, it did not, as if like you were like you were genuinely mad at Sam. Like, nope, it didn't, Sam. It didn't help us at all tonight.
Be less sick. No,
a lot of guys are getting sick around the league.
I just wanted to follow up on just the Pritchard talk with it was a great call by Joe. I don't think Joe had many other options tonight. When you talk about the lack of production he got from his bigs, Horford, I don't want to say it, Bobby, but I'm going to say it. Cornette didn't do himself any favors tonight.
Those double big combos really didn't work here.
No,
this is not a good team for that.
No, I was going to say it's not one of those. You could have used some Kata in there. I don't think this was that night.
No, Al and Porzingis is the best, double big combination you could use. I don't think any other double big combination the Celtics could put out there would have been impactful.
Well, he didn't go to Horford late either, because obviously he
wasn't very good. Right.
No.
So
it's a tricky team to go small with too, because you have to replace somebody if you're going to go small, and that's what they did with Holiday here. You could go 3 guards, but then you're leaving out Brown or Tatum. So they're not that small ball team that can go to this look like some of those Brad Stevens teams were back then. So they're going to be big with the personnel they have more often than not. And that's going to be a challenge against the smaller, quicker teams like the Thunder. And, it's a good little preview of this trade deadline that's just over a month away here, where I think the Celtics are going to have to look for a guy who can bridge their bigger and smaller lineups a little bit more. And I know you guys get sick of hearing it, but I still think they've missed Grant this year. Like this would have been a good Grant game to have him out there at the 4, play a little bit more small, a little bit more flexible.
Everybody drink.
So can you find your Grant type, or even
wine
just a wing?
Wine from the bottle.
I was going to say, we call those 40s back in my day, Jimmy.
I got the other one taped.
Jimmy, I was gonna ask you about that earlier. I was like, "What are you swigging on?"
This is water, everybody. This is the mountain.
It's a bottle.
New Year's is over.
Yeah, you literally pulled it out of a brown paper bag.
I'm on detox.
I was like, "Damn, Jimmy rocking a 40 up in this phone."
Oh, shit. You ever play Edward 40 Hands back in the day, Sherrod?
Sherrod was like, "Is that a Colt 45?"
Exactly. No, you won't see me drinking any alcoholic beverages on this show. This week.
Pull up the tape. Put a receipt at.
I got people still DM me asking me for the clips of those shows from the past.
I gotta go find that one.
We're not gonna dig that up.
Bobby's like going into the archives right as we speak.
I think we've beat this.
That'll reemerge at some point.
I think we've beat this game up enough, boys, and we're gonna shut it down in a few. But before we do, old friend Gordon Hayward made the news a little bit this week.
Rematch April 3rd
on the podcast.
Man, real quick, I'm loving these podcasts by these players.
Are you? I have the opposite take.
You didn't like it.
It's not that I don't like it. It's interesting, and I totally get it, and I'm cool with it. I just feel like I don't want to go on a tangent, but if you're Paul George, don't you have bigger and better things to do right now?
Oh, you mean current players? Oh, got you.
Yeah, current players.
Yeah, that's not
Like,
You gotta be in
Paul
the gym
George
every
have-
second of every day.
Well, I'm saying like you
Well,
just went
Draymond's not
4
putting out
for
episodes, is he? I hope not.
players who go like 4 for 19 from the field, and then you have this podcast
No,
on, and you don't say a
podcast.
damn thing about the fact that you just went 4 for 19 last night,
Yeah.
as if that didn't happen, as if
They're
that's not
talking
news.
They're talking to Evan
Yeah.
Turner, like, so how
As
you
if
been,
Paul
man?
George,
How's
as if
everything?
Paul George hasn't won a damn thing in his career. Like maybe
Oh, he's
like
won contracts, Jimmy. He's
Yeah,
he's a
well,
winner in my eyes.
he's probably got
He's a
better.
big.
I can guarantee you he's got better podcast equipment than I have. That is for sure. I can guarantee you that.
No, who's trending right now? If you ask me, man, Jeff Teague, man.
Oh,
listen,
he's the man.
dude,
He is the
his
man.
storytelling.
The man, dude.
One of the few disappointments I have was that I did not talk more to Jeff Teague.
Yo,
He is
I
hysterical.
forget this man was a Celtic.
I know,
man.
right?
I didn't know.
That was
I
the
didn't-
COVID year, though, wasn't it? It was tough to talk to guys that year.
I felt like
No,
Jeff Teague just had like it was a relatively quiet NBA player. Like he had a great career, you know.
No, he
his thing,
didn't.
I
He was
don't think-
average. He was an
Yeah,
average NBA player, and I
No, he was
respect
above
that.
average. He was above average.
Yo, that LeBron story had me in tears, man. When he
But
talked about
he's a
fucking
great
him because he
story.
was so
It's
mad.
funny as hell, man. Oh, the story he told about Jimmy
Well,
Butler.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, yeah,
that one's all-time story about him and the Timberwolves.
But anyway, Jimmy, what did Gordon say? Let's talk about it.
anyways, back to this. Anyways, Paul George, like less podcast, more like how about win something?
Clippers.
Come on, we wouldn't get nuggets like this.
Yeah. So, anyways, Gordon Hayward, old friend here, former Boston Celtic, jumped on the podcast, and admittedly, I have not listened to the whole podcast, but there's been a couple clips going around on Hayward specifically talking about the 2018-2019 team, and he goes into a little bit of detail on the problems that they had and why they came up short. Essentially, too many guys wanted to be the guy, and even though they all had,
Including himself,
and everyone had their own reasons for doing so. I think Hayward said he was coming off that big injury, wanted to show that he still had it. Kyrie Irving was, coming off of, I think, some sort of injury and just coming off of being Kyrie Irving.
Right after LeBron.
Yeah, right. Coming off of being Kyrie Irving, you still want to be Kyrie Irving. You had Tatum, Brown, and Rozier,
you're emerging.
were the emerging stars, wanting to prove themselves. And we all know Rozier wanted to, be in a much bigger role. And
he's trying to build off of what happened in the playoffs. I don't blame him.
Right.
He went off.
Yeah, when he made Bledsoe disappear like that, when that step back three.
Yeah. And
Yeah, do you remember,
Called him
Drew
Drew.
Bledsoe pulled up to TD Garden, man. Like that was a thing. Like
that was too good.
it was great. It was supposed to make a wine together or something. But sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, but it was cool to hear this, but I don't think anyone's surprised to hear it. I think we all knew it.
We all knew that.
Yeah.
And Hayward, I don't know how much he got into it, and I don't know if he would want to get into it, but his injury complicated a lot of things because no longer could you put him in the category of being better than Jalen, better than Tatum, because an injured Hayward, even at that point, was not as good as Tatum and Brown. And they knew that. And that was part of their frustration. Like, why am I taking a backseat to this dude who, much respect to what he's done in his career, but right now I'm better than him.
Yeah.
And if I'm better than him, why am I splitting time? Why am I not doing it? So I understand exactly what he's talking about, but let's just put it in full context. The fact that injury, and it was a horrible injury for those of us who were there witnessing it. I mean, it was one of the worst injuries I've ever heard. Okay. And that was the thing.
You heard it?
You heard the thud.
Oh, yeah. You heard that.
And in Cleveland, where our seats were, they were pretty damn far away from the court, and you could hear that thud. Yeah. So, but that being said, that injury complicated the timeline and the context and just the relationships of all the players on that team. Because now all of a sudden, the guy that you had in your 1 or 2 slot, really talent-wise, was probably 4 or 5. And yet you were still treating him as if he was a 1 or 2. Yeah. And for young guys like Jalen and Jason, I totally understand why they want more responsibility, because they practice with this guy afterwards. They know what he can do and what he can't do. And if you watch him play, it was pretty obvious that he was not the same player. He wasn't that dude that you saw in Utah that if you slept on him for a possession, he would dunk on your dome. He was not that dude anymore. And again, his last year in Utah, I literally watched every single game he played on NBA League Pass, because I knew that was a guy that they were going to target. So I made a point of watching every single game he played. And him and I had conversations about a lot of the different games because I watched them all. That guy was not what Boston got after he was hurt. And it's sad and it's disappointing because he really, I thought, was on path to be be an all-time great. When you think about his size, his ability to shoot, put it on the floor, dunk on you on your dome if you're not careful. But the injury took a lot of that away, and he's been a shell of himself since. So his point about guys having lots of different agendas totally makes sense. Totally makes sense because he wanted to get back to where he was, and Tatum and Brown are like, we're trying to get to where we're going to be. Right. And Kyrie was just Kyrie. We don't know what the hell he wanted to do.
Kyrie was
you went unmentioned here, but there's no doubt there were some implications there. But as we talked about too, it wasn't all Kyrie. I mean, I think that was a very difficult year for Terry Rozier, and he probably didn't handle it the way he wanted to, especially coming off the starting role he had on the run to the East Finals. I know Hayward mentioned some of the young guys there, and that was, I think Kyrie's big gripe there too is the way, they carried themselves coming off the East Finals run. Like, they figured it all out. And, I saw some of the feedback here being that Brown and, Tatum, they should have just let those guys roll. But those guys weren't who they are now. Like, they had to go through that. They had to go through figuring out on their own. And they had a lot of disappointments that followed this, even though they might have proven to be the best players on that group, when they came out into their primes here. So it was a tough mix. You even just look at the kind of players that were on that team, a ton of wings, a bunch of packed backcourt. Danny Ainge, and he ended up out of a job 2 years after this. Probably should have done more to tinker with that roster mid-season, seeing how it was going. Especially Rozier, who was going to inevitably leave. He wouldn't trade Kyrie despite all the writing on the wall. I think they waited until the last second praying he would stay, and then, of course, he made his departure to Brooklyn. And even Al Horford, they let him go for nothing after this season, which was just a disaster. And I think Al getting out of there, even though he got paid, certainly I think said a lot to what the situation was in the room that year. And I saw Himmelsbach talk to Tatum about this at the pregame or shoot around whatever this morning, and Tatum agreed that it was just a terrible year. Like, that was just an awful result. But it wasn't interpersonal stuff. It was all on court chemistry issues. And, Josue always talks about the, Orlando game with Kyrie and Hayward getting into it on the final play there. That was as emblematic as anything.
Jumping up and down like a little kid. Yeah, man. Yeah. Lost his shit.
That was so funny to me seeing that.
Yo, that was crazy. Yo, shout out to ESPN, though. They put my video on SportsCenter. But anyways, Orlando's the only place where you get those seats right underneath the basket for the media. But you're almost right next to the photographers. But yeah, I mean, it's what Sherrod said, I think is spot on, especially when you think about what the plan was, right? And Hayward talked about that in this podcast. It was the first couple of years, Kyrie and Hayward were supposed to guide that group, and obviously Tatum and Brown were going to find their way. And the injury obviously changed all of that. But once you got that taste of success in the form of Eastern Conference Finals, making it as far as they did, it obviously changed things. It changed guys' mindset coming into this season. And everyone just sort of assumed that, with all this talent, everyone's healthy, it's all going to come together. Well, basketball doesn't work that way, especially when you have guys who have their own agendas. And I feel like that was the case, and it's a tough spot. You can turn and say, like a lot of people were saying around that time, looking at Brad Stevens and saying, his tight relationship with Gordon Hayward that dates back to when Hayward was in high school. Why is he forcing the issue here? Okay, well, at the same time, though, you want to give the guy a chance to get back somewhere close to who he was, and you had to play him, right? You have to try to see that process through and see what's at the other side of it. And clearly, it didn't look good, going into that playoff series with the bubble, and even the year before that, or the year after, rather. So I just feel like it's unfortunate. It didn't plan out the way these guys wanted it to. But you look back at it, and I don't think you say, man, you wish the Celtics gave Hayward more of a shot, or you wish things were different in the sense of, it wasn't going to be like this, because Hayward just hasn't been the same player ever since. So it's unfortunate, but the Celtics were able to sort of rebuild on the fly the way they did, and trading Rozier and turning him to, Kemba Walker, and then having to move on from that. So it's been a lot of, looking back on it, it's impressive the way Danny Ainge was able to keep this team relevant, especially with these guys still in the mix, still in the fold, and Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, with again, and it's just another example of how difficult it is to build a team that will actually win the championship, because you can put a bunch of talent out there, but they have to be able to play together. They all have to have the right mindset, and we all know about
Mhm.
that. The Celtics teams from 07, 08, and they were at the point in their career where their agenda was to win a championship,
Mhm.
and the players, the rookies and the younger guys, they didn't have a big enough say to screw that up for the
Right.
KG, Pierce, Ray, and then they brought in more veterans who had the same mentality. So you really have to find guys and find a situation that makes sense. So that's a difficulty. I don't think this Celtics team has anything close to those issues. I think there does seem to be, obviously there's a good mix of veterans now, because you've got some of these guys who have been in the league, some of the same players that we're talking about on this team are a lot older now, and they've been through the highs and the lows of the career. And I think they are more interested. I would hope, at least, that they are more interested in winning a championship. At least they say that. And then you've got the veterans. Obviously, Holiday's done it already.
Mhm.
Porzingis has been to the lowest of lows, and we can see just what winning does for him. So you can see where his priorities lie. So I don't think they're going to have, or they do have, those issues. Not even close. And again, I think Hayward said they had like a bunch of players only meetings that year too, to try to hash things out, and everybody said the right things, but actually doing them was a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was interesting, and figured we'd chat about that before we head out. Any last comments, boys, before we call it on the game, or anything else? I know the Celtics play Utah on Friday back home at the TD Garden, so
Look,
we have a couple days off before that one.
looking forward to that game. It's a different kind of test than what they saw tonight. Tonight, they played a team that's among the best in the league, and that's a challenge. And then you're going to playing a Utah team that's not quite on the same level.
No.
So are they going to have that edge that they need to beat them? And a chance to see Will Hardy, the head coach of Utah, he's really, again, that was the Derek White whisper before all of us
Yes.
got on it. I mean, I just remember when they made the trade with San Antonio, and I was talking with Will about that. And so much of the things that you hear people talk about now about Derek White, as far as potential as a shot maker, a guy that can play multiple positions, really good defender. You haven't really seen how good a defender he's going to be just yet. Will was talking about this stuff, but like literally on the way to picking Derek up at the airport, because that's how tight they were. He was literally the guy that picked Derek White up at the airport. And it'll be good to see him. Good to see our good friend Kelly Olynyk,
No.
who, I haven't looked at his numbers recently, but Kelly was on like a 50-40. He was on a 60-50-90 track in
Okay.
terms of shooting from the field
Damn.
and the free throw lines.
Yeah.
He's probably cooled off a little bit since then, but it'll be good to see him as well.
Trade
Celtics
rumor
have been,
guy too.
yeah, they've been connected to him each of the last 2 years here. He's
Yeah, I was going to
expensive,
say it
but
was those numbers that I think sparked those reports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's a good
Alrighty.
team. Good coach too. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean that'll be interesting. I want to see how they defend the Celtics with Porzingis in the mix, and how they're able to bounce back from this, because typically Celtics, they usually give you a stellar performance after a game like this. So I don't think it'll be any different. But with help with Will Hardy on the other end, I'm curious to see how he defends, or how their offensive approach will be, especially with Kelly in there, and Markkanen's back and all that. So, but yeah, maybe we'll get a close game. But if not, I probably predict the Celtics will win this one.
That's
I
a
don't think it's going to be
back-to-back
close.
too, so it'll be interesting how they handle the rest there with
Mhm.
Porzingis, who's missed 3 straight back-to-backs, and Horford, of course, who doesn't play in them. Do
Well,
they
he doesn't
go
play.
with the rest night on the front end against the West team, against Utah there, maybe, because Indiana's on the second half there, travel game? I don't know. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting.
they got a packed schedule coming up here, guys. I don't know. They'll have to be creative with when they sit guys, because after so you got Friday, then you've got the next one Saturday against the Pacers, Monday against the Pacers, both on the road. Come back to Boston for a big one against the Timberwolves. That's the first night of a back to back, and then you've got the Bucks on the
That
back end of
Bucks
that.
game's a monster on the back-to-back, yeah.
So you've got a tough stretch of games coming up here.
You might want to flip the script and just go all in on that Bucks game and just play your guys. because that's on the back end of the back-to-back, right? So
Yeah.
that means you get the next day off.
You do.
So
then
I
you get
wouldn't
the
be
Rockets, which is another day off.
Ooh.
Ime.
He
Ime's
may return next Saturday.
Ime's return.
I will absolutely be in the building for that one. Oh my.
I might have to go to that one too.
That one's going to be kind of saucy.
You could get a good game.
I wonder if it's going to be cheers. What do you? We're not even going to talk about it right now. It's too many
Let's
teams.
yeah,
We'll table that. We'll
Next
table that.
review.
But I want to say once again,
Tribute
thank
video?
you.
No.
Oh, that's a good.
Did Joe say
Sway.
so? Wow.
Yeah, I don't think
What a trolling comment that was from Joe Sway.
so.
Hopefully it's a tribute video and not something else. All right. Anyways, we'll be visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Get $150 in bonus bets when you place a winning $5 money line bet.
That's a flagrant foul, Jimmy. That was a flagrant foul.
And then HelloFresh.
Great play.
Our friends at HelloFresh, guys. HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. Use code CLNS free and get breakfast for life. We're going to say bye before we say the wrong things. Anyways.
HelloFresh does. See you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you guys Friday.
Good night. Thanks for